Welcome again, everybody. As usual, I'll just give it 20 seconds for people to get online and for me to check my audio levels here, but we'll be ready to go. Make sure that you've got makecode.microbit up as usual. You'll find that in the description online. Okay, so I've waited. Like I said, you can find the link in the description to go to makecode.microbit.org. Today we're going to have a look at wireless communication. One of the good things that you can do with the microbit is that you can connect one microbit to several microbits at the same time, which is very clever for such a small device. So we're going to learn some basics on how to get that started. So the first things first, again, you may see more items in here if you've been playing around with the microbit. If it's your first chance to have a look, you'll just see new project on makecode.microbit.org. So click new project to make a start. Now, the wireless communication methods that we're going to be dealing with today is Bluetooth. That's what the microbit uses. Bluetooth is quite a low power, short distance communication, but it's very, very useful because it's easy to use. Wi-Fi goes longer distances, and there are different wireless communication methods, 3G, 4G, 5G. But Bluetooth is quite straightforward for what we have today. But we've got a range of about 5 to 10 meters on the microbit. I think 10 meters would be pushing it. So if you do get the chance to get some microbits, you may even want to get two so that you can communicate, or at least have a friend that has one. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be using a lot in the radio section here, this kind of pink block. So first of all, though, we're going to get a basic input. We're going to say on a button press. So we're going to click on that or drag that in, and we're going to use our communication methods just through the buttons today. We may use a few extras as we go through. And we're going to make a device now that will communicate your mood and your feelings from one device to another. Now, to do this, we use the radio button as I suggested here, and it's important that we do the send radio number, and we drag that in. So on this, we are setting the number to 0. We can choose different values, as you'll see in a moment, to send different commands across. We can get quite complicated with this, but we're just going to start basic. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to send the command. That's all it is. So when we send, we then also need another device to receive. So we go to radio, and then we go to on radio receive number. Not this one, not this one, just the on radio received. And we drag that one in, all found in the radio section. Now, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to drag in a bit of logic for it to understand what's going on. And the logic block we're going to use is just the if command, the one we've been using quite a bit over the last few lessons. For those of you that haven't been here before, if is just telling the microbit or the computer to wait for a command and make a decision. So if I drag that in into here, and like yesterday, if you accidentally drag that out, it'll hash to say it's not part of a block. If you put something in the wrong place, don't worry, you can press the undo button, but we want it to go into the radio receive block. And as we've done before, but if you're new to this, I'll repeat it, we're going to need to come up with a statement here. At the moment, it's just saying if true, but we're going to need to give the computer a set of rules. So we go back into the logic, and we drag this first comparison. It doesn't actually matter which of these two comparisons you use because you can actually change them, but we're going to drag the top comparison in. And as before, we're looking to wait and see until those yellow kind of highlight goes in the right place. If you miss it, you'll go outside of the block. If you just drag it on here without the yellow going, you'll miss that block. So you want to drag it into that area. Now this next part is something that I often forget myself if it's been a while since I've used the microbit. And we need to say if the radio receive number is equal to 0. In other words, this number here. And I always look for the variables and I never see it in here. I look for the radio and I don't see it on its own in here. And I forget, and don't forget this yourself, that you actually just drag this red pill kind of shaped icon here into this column. So I'm literally just going to click and drag and it duplicates into there. So I do forget that quite a lot myself when I'm using this, so try not to forget that yourself. And it's basically saying if the received number equals 0, and that's the number we've sent, then we can do something. And what I'd like to do is just send a simple icon saying that I am happy. So I've just dragged in from the basic menu, I've dragged in a show icon, and then I've changed that icon to whatever I want, whatever mood I'm in when I press the A button. Now what I also like to do in this scenario is I like to make sure that the device that I'm sending from has correctly sent that device, so sent the number and sent it off, because at the moment all my original device is going to do is send a number and I'll just have a blank screen here with nothing on there. So I'm going to grab a basic and I'm going to drag in an icon, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a nice little animation here, and I'm going to go to the big kind of diamond shape, and then I'm going to duplicate, which is 2-finger click or right click and duplicate, or you can just drag another show icon in, up to you. And I'm going to change that from a big diamond to a small diamond, and then I'm going to display the happy. Sorry, I did sad there, didn't I? Let's make it happy. I'm going to send this. I'm going to change this to happy. We're in a happy mood today. So here, this is just a little animation. It's not actually necessary. You don't need any of these three icons here at all, but it's just helpful to check when you're using your devices that things are happening as the way they should have done, and you've got your device switched on, and it just helps you to find problems out if there ever are any. Now with this emulator, it gets quite clever here. Sometimes you have to click this twice, as I think I'm going to have to do now. I'm going to click the A because that's the button I'm waiting to click, and it then produces another micro bit and doesn't send that signal. But if I press it again, it's just because it took a little time to load that up. It will send, as it just did there, from one micro bit to another. It sent that signal, and it represented that send by using this digital symbol there. So again, just press A and it makes the little animation, and the other micro bit, which can be up to nearly 10 meters, but you'd be pushing it on a micro bit to make that mood symbol. Now we just need to create more options for our mood creator. So rather than drag everything in again, do that duplicate by 2-finger clicking on a laptop or right clicking on a computer and duplicate this whole button A segment. It's gone hashed as we came into this issue on the first day, as I recall. It's hashed because at the moment it's confused because I've got 2 button A presses. It doesn't know which of the button A presses to choose from. So I'm going to change that to button B. Now again, I'm going to have confusion here if I send 2 zeros. So I'm going to change this new mood indicator to number 1. At the moment, because I've duplicated, I've got the same segment here, and this is going to be a feeling quite about things, a little bit average. Now at the moment I'm sending this on the micro bit, but I'm not receiving on the other microbit because I haven't got a new set of instructions. Now this is where some people will have different methods, different preferences. I don't really care which one you do as long as it works. I'm going to show you what I would prefer after this. I'm going to show you a simple solution. Sometimes I like to show a different variety of how you can or can't do these things. So here I'm just going to duplicate this if. So two-finger click on a laptop, and I'm going to duplicate that whole statement of if, and I'm going to drag it into there, and this time I'm going to replace the 0 with a 1 because I'm representing both of my options, and don't forget to change that happy to the him. So there we go. I've got my statements. Again, I might need to press this twice because it takes a little time for the emulator to load up the second microbit. So there it is, it loads it up. So let's press it again for A. Yes, does my happy. And B sends that signal of the other option. So A, there we go, and B. Brilliant. Now this is where I'm going to get not technical on you. I'm just going to get a little bit geeky and just be a little bit more precise. I don't personally like to have lots of these different if blocks if I can. I like the program to scroll through different options and then, as we did yesterday, give me a separate option. It also means it's just a little less clunky, but you may prefer to keep it this way. If you want a third option, you can just duplicate and stick it in. It is a little easier to do that, but I don't personally think it's the best way to do it. There may be some difference of opinion, but I'm just going to show you the way I would like this to be done, and it's always good to get into good habits. So rather than have lots of separate if statements as we had there before, I'm going to press this plus to give us some different options. Now remember, I actually like my else to be, if you remember from the other days, I like that to be an error, because if I've not written all my extra options, it gives me a cross to suggest something else happens. So for example, at the moment, because I've dragged this out, if I press A, it's got an option for A, fantastic. But if I press B, I get a cross because I haven't yet written my statement for the B again here. So I'm going to press plus to create my B statement, and I'm just going to drag that I've already done into here. Now, just in case you didn't follow that before, I'll do it all from the beginning just to repeat myself. We grabbed a comparison block. Don't have to do this if you've already got that and dragged it in. We drag the receive number into here, and we remind ourselves that now we're doing option 1. So you could have dragged that in from this option in here, but I'm going to get rid of that now. And like I said, if you prefer just duplicating the ifs because it made sense to you, then do that. I don't want to confuse you. But for those of you that can see this way of doing it, it's easier because now if I want to make a third option, I just click the plus again to do another else if, and I can duplicate that out, create a number 2 to represent another option, and I can duplicate or drag in an icon from here. And no one wants to be sad, but sometimes we are, so I've clicked in a little sad icon. And here I'm going to duplicate my A button, and again it should be hashed because I've got 2 options for A, which the computer gets a little bit confused about. So I've got another option left, which is AB, and this is for radio send 2. And that's going to be a sad face, unfortunately. There we go. So we have our 3 options now. We can test. We should always test. A is the happy, B is the meh, and A and B, which we can't actually click these 2 buttons out at the same time, so it gives us a button that doesn't really exist on the microbit itself. You would use 2 thumbs or 2 fingers to press your buttons here, and that gives us the sad option. Now we can actually have lots more, because if we actually duplicate our button here, we have run out of A's and B's. But what I could have done what I could have done there, I'm just going to drag that into the trash. We do have all these other inputs, remember. So we can actually have on shake. Here we go. And we can say on shake, and this time I'm going to duplicate this value. Now it might be easier because you see I'm having to duplicate those one by one, and what it might be easier to do is duplicate the whole block, so I can drag in all of that and then just remove what I didn't want. That saves me having to press duplicate loads of times. Remember that we keep knocking on a value here, and we can press plus, duplicate, and be careful again to duplicate the triangles here. We can duplicate to do that. There we go. So I've gone quite fast for all of that today. Apologies if it's the first time that you've done one of these sessions and feeling a little bit lost, but you can press pause, you can go back at any time, you can do what you like, take as long as you want with these lessons. They're also recorded, so you can watch them afterwards to go back. So even if you just like to watch first and then do afterwards, by all means you can do that. So here we needed to change that to the number 3 as well, and come up with a different icon. Or why not stick in your own custom icon? Why not? So we've got 2 eyes and maybe whatever that is. Or actually maybe we can go for super happy. So maybe I can move my eyes further up. Maybe I can go for this kind of super happy icon. There we go. So we can add in whatever we want. You can also get it to play a tune, maybe. We can grab into the music. We can play a melody, the da-dums, or whatever it is. I'm going to do this for my new one because I'm super happy. And now, when I go back to my emulator and press shake, it will show me a third one, and press the... And then I've got a sound there. You might not be able to hear it because it's in on my earphones. Let me move it to the microphone. And you can change those through. So again, we talked about the idea that you can connect sounds to this. I'm just going to drag that sound out just because it just gets annoying in my ear, nothing more. But it's just showing you that you can do what you want. Now we can get a little bit more complicated, I suppose. You could actually make this an automatic idea. So what I'm saying here is, yes, we could press some buttons, but I'm going to add an extra option and possibly stop it there and show you how you can make this into a game as well. You could actually make this as an icon for maybe a plant in your house. So you can have a microbit by a plant, and you can have the plant tell you if it's too hot or if it's not light enough. So here on the input, we can actually have different things that we're doing, and rather than actually have a button press or a shake or something like that, what we can actually do is have the computer always checking forever what to do. So we're going to go to logic here, and we're going to go to the if true statement here. And usually when we drag in one of these logical arguments, I think we virtually always drag one of these comparisons in. There are a few options where you don't, but for today we're going to drag that in. And what we're going to have a look at now is we're going to go to our inputs. We're going to go to temperature, because I think that's an important one for a plant, and I'm going to drag it in. And we're going to say forever, so it's always checking. If the temperature goes above the dizzying heights of 30 degrees, it's going to ignore everything, and it's going to send the radio number in an emergency. And again, I'll do this from scratch. We go to radio, send radio number, and we're up to number 4 now. And this time, you know, we can have a look at the different icons that are in here to see if it can do that. I'm not going to go for the little animation here now. I'm just, because it's an emergency, it's hot, it's not going to waste any time, it's going to send that information. And I can't really see anything here that's suggesting too hot, so maybe I'm just going to use try and draw a fire emoji. Maybe it's dragging a basic instead of using the show icon, maybe. And don't worry about things if the blocks go all over the place. You can move them around. You can in fact use your scroll wheel to move things all the way down. So don't worry about that. And this time if the temperature goes above 30, see if I can draw like a flame. Would that be like a flame icon? I don't know. It doesn't really look really that flamey. Well, I'm just going to go for it. You can do better yourself. And we would then have that icon, and then maybe I would have a warning light. So again, I can just press my plus, and you can see why I quite like doing this. I can duplicate on the kind of triangular hexagony option there and drag that in. And on receive number 4, because that's what we're up to now, I'm not even going to, well, yes, it's useful to have an icon of some description. I think my flame was fairly rubbish, but maybe I'm going to go for this as my emergency icon here. And here I'm also going to place a sound because I might not be near it. I'm going to go for my sound icon, and I'm going to go see what other options I've got here. Yeah, it's getting too hot. Going to go for the funeral one. Why not? Let's have a bit of fun. And here, when we've got our microbit emulator, we've got our temperature gauge now. And if we just, I don't think it will, if I go over 30, there you go, it has done so. And it's repeating once. Now, you can hear that. It's not allowing me to go through the whole funeral repeating music there because it's immediately sending this message over and over again and not letting it go through the whole music. So it might well be worth adding a pause at the end for 2 seconds, maybe more for the funeral music to go through. So this will mean it will only check the temperature every 2 seconds, which is fine. It's not going to go, the temperature is going to rise over a certain amount of time. Now this time when I rise the temperature over 30, it's going to hopefully play it a little bit more. There you go. And again. So it's doing that a bit better for 2 seconds, and just keep playing it. I think the song goes on for more than that, so maybe you would want 5,000 to do that, and then when you press and play. So it's about trial and error, playing around with it, finding out the problems that do and don't exist. And there's my flame icon for that area, and it's going to push it out. So we're getting there for these. So you do have to test these things out, and it's working much better now with a 5-second delay on that. Just keeps playing that tune over and over and over. So because it's doing that, I'm just going to drag it out now. So we can get a little bit more inventive when it comes to what we put in there. So I'll duplicate that and keep these symbols similar now. And we're starting to make a device that can do lots of different things and communicate to another warning device or another device that can help out. Now you can actually send this to many more than one-to-one. You can send, as long as you've got the same code on all the microbits, you can have a variety of these devices around the house. So you can have one control unit, and you can have lots of people all over the house with different microbits, and you can actually send messages between devices. So you can actually make kind of house walkie-talkies in a way, but our unfortunate thing that we've got here is that we're limited by Bluetooth range. Now we could get clever, and I have managed to connect a microbit to the internet to post these feelings to Twitter. And maybe that's an option for another day, but you can have your microbit attached to your plant, sending your plant's emotions out to the internet on a regular basis, just as a little bit of fun. In fact, there's a tree out in the world that has its own Twitter feed telling you how it's getting on, because why not? So here we go. That's quite interesting there. I do like that. And remember, if you've done a lot of hard work and you want to save this code, you can press the save button down the bottom, give it a name. I'm going to call this plant aid. There we go, because it's kind of started to morph into a plant. Now, yesterday we had a few problems. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. It's looking like we're doing it again. It's having a few issues. If you press the save button, sometimes it goes around and around and freezes as it's doing now. But don't worry, you can refresh the browser to get off that problem. But do be aware that there are always sometimes issues when you're using browser-based coding or browser-based services. So you can always just drag in a new one. It's actually got my code there ready and waiting for me when I go into it next time. But what we're going to have a look at this next time, or this next evolution of that, is I'm going to try and make a game out of the wireless communication. And we're not going to get too huge into this. It's going to be a very, very simple game, but it shows you where you can go with this. So if you open up or go home and open up a new make code section as I've done. Now again, if you like to have multiple open at the same time so you can play around, you can just do that. I've just got one behind the other. And this time we're going to go through a very similar solution. This time we're going to run our radio button on a shake. So I'm going to drag the onShake command, and this time I'm going to create a variable. We're going to run a similar idea from the dice game from yesterday, and we're going to click variable, and the dice game we're going to make today, just dice, there you go. And this time we're going to set the dice. So this variable, if you weren't here yesterday, is just something that changes. So each time we roll the dice, it's going to change the number, depending on if we have a six-sided dice or above. So I'm going to drag that in, and we're going to say set the dice to, and as we did yesterday, so we're building on what we've learning, we're going to pick a random number between 1 and 6. So we're going to stick in there 1, and you could have more than a six-sided dice, and so just drag that out there. Just click inside and 6. So you can have a 10-sided dice if you wanted to. I'm just going to stick with a traditional 6. And we're going to show, in the basic column here, we're going to show the number, which is the top option. And the number we're going to show, which we go to variables for, the variable that we've created, is the dice number. So just to repeat that from yesterday, or if you weren't here in yesterday's session, we're setting the dice number on shake to a random number between 1 and 6. And then we're going to show that dice number on here. So let's just show that that works. There we go. Absolutely fine. Perfect. So it's showing some random numbers. Now this time we're going to get a bit clever with how we're using the radio button. We're going to click radio, and we're going to radio send number like we did before. And instead of sending out a 0 like we did last time, we're going to go to the variable, and we're going to send out the dice number. There, sending out the dice. Now what that's doing is, if you roll a 1, it's going to send out a 1 to all the microbits. So this game will allow you to play with lots and lots of people that are close by on Bluetooth. And it's going to send out the radio number of your dice roll. Now the next thing is, all the other devices are going to listen. So we're going to go on radio received. So this is all the other devices are now going to listen. And because there's a choice about to come up with the radio numbers and the dice number, we're going to go back to logic. Going to use our tried and tested favorite if logic, and we're going to drag that in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make a decision again based on what number we receive. So as always, seems like a very now familiar path where we drag this top comparison in. And this time, remember, I forget it sometimes, we drag the radio receive into here. So let's go through that now. On radio receive a number. Now what we're going to get clever is, you're going to all shake your microbits at the same time. Everyone will get a different number and everyone will be sending different radio numbers. So let's imagine that I've shaken this dice and I've got a 4. That's going to send out a radio receive number of 4. Now what we're going to say is, if the number that you receive is greater than, and I won't do equals, I'll actually do greater than. If it's greater than your dice number, whatever you rolled, then you've lost. And you can drag in and show the string in a classic Street Fighter, an old game that you can ask your parents about. You lose. Okay, so in this example, that's what would happen. So let me just repeat that because it's not as obvious as you might think to do that. So we're all shaking the number here. So if I shake a number, that's the number being sent out, 2. Now I pressed that twice there, so by the time that person reacted, if I send out that number 2, it compares it to your dice roll, and if the one you get is higher than your number, you lose. So it's who's got the highest number. So lots of people will be getting loses and some will be getting wins. In this game, if this radio signal sent out a 2, this person must have got a 1. So again here, you lose. Now what we've done, we've not really, we've only said you lose here, surely. So I've shaken out, and we keep getting the loses because of the way it is. And I'm not entirely sure this emulator will actually work without a second device, but we haven't said if it's not greater, then you've won. So we can show that string. So you lose. So if the received number is greater, but if it's not, you win perhaps. Okay, now it's a very basic game. There are flaws with the game, and hopefully some people will start to see those flaws actually, and try and work out some fixes for that to work out what should happen. Because actually, when you have more than one person, it's not quite that simple, but it shows you the idea of what we can do. And when you're shaking the number 1, hopefully we should have a you lose. Yeah, so it's clearly, because we're dealing with the same device here, it's sending out the same number that it receives because it's the computer emulation. But if you work this out between 2 separate devices, it would make a choice between the number you're receiving from the other player and your own number yourself, and therefore working out which one is the winner. So we can use the microbit to play these kind of Bluetooth games between one or the other. We can actually use it to do much cleverer things, and what I would suggest is, if you go to microbit, and whether or not you save your program or not, and you scroll down here, what you'll find is there's quite a lot of radio games. So multi-dice is the one I've just shown you there. Mood radio is similar to the one that I showed you, and there's quite a lot of games here that will be more interesting with radio buttons. Again, as we've experienced just before, because your emulator isn't quite it's not a different device, you may not quite get the same effect as if you had 2 microbits, but it should help you to see what you get. You could even have a go at making a remote rock paper scissors. So if you shake your microbits, you can't cheat. It will play rock paper scissors against each other. So see if you can do that. That's enough for today. But again, same as before, there's a link in the description here for a for a Microsoft form. If you would like to show me any of the work that you've been completing, I will be trying to dish out a microbit for a lucky winner if you submit any of your code with what you've been doing today. And just to repeat for that, to get your code out, I'll load up my last game. If we go to Untitled here, just as I show you what the form looks like. So as you drag out any of your games, what you will be able to do is click share, publish your project, and it will give you a code. If you copy that code and then click the link in the description for this form, just type in your first name. I don't want to know your second name for safety reasons and data protection and all the above, but paste in that link into there with your name or just nickname or whatever you want in there. Press submit. I just want to see what people are getting up to by just pressing that share code button. So that's it for today. Again, you can re-listen to that because I went quite quick at the beginning, and have a play with the other games that you can see. So radio control, quite like the concept. You can use it also to make radio control buggies and the like. So yeah, just see how you go, and thanks for listening today. Bye bye.